Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the Fintech Nexus weekly news show. My name is Peter Renton, chairman and co-founder of Fintech Nexus, joined as always by my good friend and colleague Todd Anderson, who is bummed that the Mets didn't play today.
For some idiotic reason, it was 70 degrees and sunny in New York, but they canceled the game anyway. So yeah, go figure.
Go figure. And back for we haven't had her on for many months. It's so great to have you back, Kat Utek from Core Innovation. How are you doing, Kat?
Great to see you guys. Lots happening in the news this year, today, everything.
Yes, as we were just talking before we went on air, that there's been a lot happening in fintech, and it continues. And so let's get right into it. We're going to kick it off with the news about Frank and JP Morgan. JP Morgan acquired Frank, and now we have found out that firstly, JP Morgan was suing the founder, Charlie Javits, who you're suing her, basically saying she basically did not share truthfully what the state of her company was. Now the DOJ is charging her with fraud. We've got the SEC piling on, and the whole they say it's around the inflated customer count, which just seems a little odd to me. But anyway, we don't know how this is going to play out. I mean, in this country. We don't assume guilt, but we are going to, there's certainly some things that need to be answered. Todd, what do you think?
Well, I think there's always the two stories, which is the actual case and then the perception in the market, and I think we need to let the actual case play out and see what really happens there, because whatever is alleged will obviously play out in court. There'll be discovery and there'll be all documents and who knew what when and at which point. But I think the perception, fintech has had a somewhat negative perception in some of these areas. And I think it plays into that, unfortunately, even though it's one singular company, one singular case. But, I think it does hurt fintech somewhat generally. I think you'll have other banks or other potential exits where someone will ask more questions now. And so maybe it could lengthen out processes. Maybe it could drive valuations down further than they might already been. So I think there's kind of two tracks going on here. And hopefully the perception-wise, it doesn't hurt others that much, especially as the real case plays out. But yeah, I think there's kind of two things going on right now.
Yeah. Yep, agreed. I like this country, innocent until proven guilty. And I mean, if you go into the details and you read, right, obviously Charlie had sued JP Morgan first, then they sued her, then she countersued. So it'll be interesting as we get into the details and not just the sound bites. And like you said, there's two sides to every story. And it'll be interesting to see how it does help or hurt fintech in the macro environment. So time will tell.
Yeah, what I hope is that, if she is proven to be innocent, that I hope that doesn't, people have already probably made up their mind. They read the headlines and go, here's another fintech founder doing bad things. We've had all kinds of stories like that over the last, particularly on the crypto space, but even in general fintech. So, the one thing that I thought that was interesting, I saw one take that someone at JP Morgan is trying to cover their ass about this. And so maybe that runs into it. But anyway, I've got an open mind on it. I think it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. But let's move on, because we have another an acquisition that was in the news this week. Acorns, we all know they've been around for more than a decade now. They were the ones that did the kind of invented the sort of roundup savings account that you do when you spend on a debit card. They're acquiring GoHenry now. The GoHenry, really well known in the UK, less well known here, but they have been here for a couple of years, and it's basically a investing or a debit card and a finance app for kids, for the 6 to 18-year-old set, and which is not something that Acorns really has focused on at all. So this is a nice compliment, I'm guessing, for that. This is a sector I know intimately well. I've got 2 teenagers, so I'm very bullish on the sector as a whole. I feel like teenagers are underserved in when it comes to financial services. And I think some of the products out there right now are actually really good, including, I think, Go Henry. But, we don't know whether this was a distress sale. It doesn't sound like it. It looks like Acorn said they looked at 100 acquisition targets before settling on Go Henry. So, Todd, what do you think?
I wonder how many of those might have been distressed of those 100.
Right.
I mean, to me, I think it's a good move for Acorns, and anything that gets, as someone who has significantly younger kids than Peter at 7 months and 4 years, anytime you can get finance into someone's hands as early as possible, I think is good. And as the bank crisis just told us, there's still a lot that we all can learn about how the financial system works, and I think if this can help more kids understand that, I think it suits us all.
Yep, agreed. I mean, Acorns has been at the forefront of financial inclusion, and the earlier you get them, the better. So it's nice to see them with this acquisition. Also interesting to see something, cross-border that has worked well, right? Go Henry going from the UK to the US. So we'll see if that expands what Acorns does internationally.
Yeah, well, I think that's part of what they're probably trying to do is get a foothold in the UK market and just on that, like I feel like kids, my kids especially, and I think kids in general, they want to learn about money, and they don't want, like, a lot of them getting, like my kids as well, get their information from TikTok and Instagram. But I think having a really good, solid app that is used that I think you can help establish good financial habits. I mean, 12 years of age is not too young to start establishing good financial habits. So.
And who knows? Maybe the Acorns and Go Henry have a TikTok account. I have no idea.
They probably,
TikTok, but they might.
They probably do, I would guess.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, moving on. We want to talk about Bloomberg, because Bloomberg, AI and ChatGPT, all the rage. We've talked about it a few times here on the show. But Bloomberg, it was actually late last week that they announced this. Bloomberg GPT, which is a large language model, an LLM. It's a new acronym I learned this week. It's a large language model for finance. Basically, it's been trained on what they call tokens, 700 billion tokens, which token, I guess, is a word. I don't know why they don't call them words, but some of it's probably data, it's probably graphic data as well. But anyway, this is more data than ChatGPT version 3, as far as what they learned on there. So I'm really interested to see what happens here, because I feel like we are not even at the top of the first inning yet when it comes to how this stuff is used. And there's going to be some major developments over the next forever. There'll be major developments in this space. It feels like
it's just going to get creepier and creepier too.
I was going to say, I wonder if the research analysts are nervous that there might go their jobs.
I would be if I was them, because I think like the good ones, maybe like if you're a middle of the road research analyst, boy, I feel like Bloomberg might be coming for you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, doesn't that go for almost any potential application of AI in the next 10 years? If you're a middle of the road or low level employee, I mean, everyone talks about AI as an enhancement to the person, I mean, ultimately, if it's good enough, they want to replace the person at a certain level within an organization.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And I think this is where, instead of like schools banning, things like LLM, they should be encouraging it. I use a calculator. I used to be better at math in my head. Now I use a calculator. It does make me, quicker. If you give kids access to this tool, will they be able to get the base data and then be able to really add to it? Possible. I mean, think how many times we've been promised, that a machine's going to do X, Y, Z. Very rare that things can be fully automated. So really teaching people how to use the tools and to be better, I think that's probably the best way to go. I've seen it. You're going to have very specific niches, because the way they train the models, like you said, this Bloomberg one's supposed to be better than what the regular ChatGPT is. I've seen people work on it on the credit side, which is very interesting. And so you can really see like how you can get very, very detail oriented. So I think the best, whatever you are, the best investors, the analysts, they're all going to learn how to use these tools. And, if they're really good, they'll be able to make the tools even better.
Right, exactly. And I think what we haven't learned, we can't even imagine where this is going to go. And there's going to be new jobs created, right? There's going to be new opportunities created. So it's like with so much of this technological change, whereas jobs are lost and new jobs are created. I mean, look at all kinds of manufacturing.
I feel like just because it has a negative side to it doesn't mean that we shouldn't, encourage it in every way as well. I mean, there's always going to be people who abuse or use it in the wrong way. I mean, we're never going to avoid that.
You can't put the genie back in the bottle, right?
Exactly.
You can't stop progress. I mean, someone said we got to stop all AI work for the next 6 months. It's like, good luck. No one is going to agree to that. Anyway, moving on to Jamie Dimon. And he's been in the news a lot lately as well. But he did his annual letter to shareholders. And this is something that the industry takes note of. I still remember his 2015 letter to shareholders where he said, quote, Silicon Valley is coming. And that was when really at the beginning of the fintech age. And Jamie Dimon called it. Silicon Valley has really done a huge amount in financial services. But the funny thing is, JP Morgan Chase is bigger and stronger and more profitable than they've ever been. So anyway, back to his letter. He said that, the whole bank meltdown that we've had with SVB and then Signature Bank and obviously, what was the other one? The other crypto one.
Silvergate.
Silvergate. Thank you. You started with an S. Thank you. Anyway, those you basically argue what other people have said. I mean, if you were reading the footnotes of the reports from Silicon Valley Bank, you would have known that there was severely underwater with their bond portfolio, and it was something that people who were really in the know paid attention to. But he said while the crisis has been good for JP Morgan, he said it has been very bad for the industry. He also said that stress tests haven't included the impact of rising interest rates, and obviously they should. So, anyway, what are your guys' thoughts on Jamie Dimon this week?
The super Fed chair.
Right.
That's what we've come to define him as. I mean, I just hope that like some of the other banking crises, that they learn from it and remove it from the footnotes and maybe make it higher up. Because if it was hiding in plain sight, why don't we just make it in plain sight? And maybe help with transparency in that way. But I mean, the good thing is that the banking crisis seems to be fairly limited. And even Ron, Shevlin last week had said that a lot of the outflows and deposits he felt was a lot of hot money jumping around, and that like actual customers weren't necessarily leaving in bulk from community banks, which is what we probably all hope is the case. I still think there's a void left by SVB that is going to take some time to fill, but it feels like the crisis that we were in a month ago has abated in a broader sense, at least.
Touch wood, Todd. Touch wood.
Yeah, I've been knocking. I think it's gonna, SVB being sold is going to really hurt the community. We really needed a bank that understood us, our unique needs, the startups, entrepreneurs, people in the industry. I'm hoping First Republic will step up. They've been doing pretty creative things in the space. We'll see if they end up surviving and if people want to still serve a Silicon Valley customer, because unfortunately, and our startups have been rudely awakened as they have moved their money into some of the big incumbent banks about how nearly not as flexible they are as were First Republic and SVB. So I think that gap is going to long-term hurt us, but agreed that the initial acute crisis is over.
Right. Okay.
There's got to be a consortium of banks that should really want to take this on and say, hey, we want to work with you. We'll, maybe they don't fill the one-to-one void of SVB, but maybe a consortium of them can get together and get 90% of the way there.
Well, the trouble is, I feel like SVB was created almost from the ground up to serve entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, and that I think
Don't you think there's a bunch of community banks out there that could like put their heads together and be like, maybe we can, Silicon Valley Bank did this. Maybe we won't take certain risks they did or certain things they did, but we know entrepreneurs fairly well. We work with some of them. Let's double or triple down on that and really serve a community that could make our bank, put a stamp on our bank.
I like that, but I think some of the banks lost trust of the community because, right? Yeah. I mean, Silicon Valley Bank, a lot of people there were our friends, and still a lot of money was pulled. So it'll be interesting to see how much people want to serve us.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, well, moving on. More bad news. It seems like our weekly layoff segment has Aspiration in it today. Now, Aspiration, you probably remember them. This was a sort of environmentally friendly digital bank. That's what they were. They pivoted in 2021 they were selling a lot of carbon credits, and they were de-emphasizing the digital bank, and then they've been building up, and they've really just been focusing now on carbon credits. And they did 100 people laid off in December. Another 180 are going to be laid off starting May 26th. And you also remember that they still have a SPAC in market. It's the second longest running SPAC in the whole of the country, and it's been delayed 3 times. I can't imagine a deal is going to get done there. But boy, Aspiration having some trouble.
Yeah, but you know what? These guys, they've had a lot of issues in the past, and every time I thought maybe they were down and out, they rise again, down, rise, down.
Right.
So, we'll see. They have a new CEO, right, as of,
Yep.
about 6 months ago. So we'll see if this is gonna right the ship. I think if this layoff doesn't do it, then there's probably not another kind of rebirth.
Right.
It does. I mean, it's not easy to serve a specific niche in the market and then make enough margin on that, to satisfy an entire business around that specific niche. I think there's been a few other neobanks that have kind of felt the pain of like, hey, we're going to serve this niche because Chime and them serve such a wide, a wide array of customers. Chime is, obviously the lower income and, people that are close or near paycheck to paycheck, but even Revolut, who has 40 million customers worldwide, I mean, they don't have much traction yet in the U.S.
Right.
Outside of a handful of neobanks who've done fairly well. Serving that one niche it's not easy to make that and monetize it.
Yeah, I mean, that's like you saw Daylight, I think, shut down or have some serious issues lately. First Boulevard, I know they changed their name to something, again, having serious issues in that space. So banking is hard, and it's an interesting question: is can you be that niche and be successful? Right now, it seems like you can't.
Yeah. You can't just rely on interchange fee. I think that has gone out the window as far as a long-term business model. You've got to have something else. Revolut have multiple revenue sources. They get stock trading, crypto trading. They've got all kinds of different like Forex stuff.
And those margins in emerging markets are certainly larger when it comes to interchange and stuff than say you'd see in the US.
Yeah, Revolut are profitable. I mean, they've got like 6,000 employees these days, and they are profitable. So good for them. Anyway, we are now going to move on to another acquisition that happened this week, or it was announced this week. FinFit and Salary Finance, and this is sort of more in the employee wellness space. I've seen FinFit's name around a bit, and I didn't really know much about them. They've been around for more than 20 years. I was really surprised to see that. Salary Finance, we've known them from the UK. They started up here in the US a few years back. I know they used to have Dan Macklin, who was one of the co-founders of SoFi, as their CEO. He did that for 2 or 3 years. But anyway, it says it's a merger. They're maintaining the FinFit name, so maybe FinFit acquired Salary Finance US. The UK company is still going. And I mean, I'm a big fan of the employee wellness space. I think this has been so underutilized. I think the whole there should be a whole suite of financial services available through your employer, and we're just getting I think, some really good products out there now, but this is the space these guys operate in. 10 million employees, 500,000 employers combined with both companies. I mean, it's a decent sized operation.
I mean, I think it was a few years ago, all the rage was, we'll help you pay off your student debt as a, a wellness offering from employers. I think, moving more in this direction of like a full suite. I think people need to get creative, especially companies that can't just say like Google or whoever and say, here's, $500,000 to come on our team. It's what are the extra, if you can't pay me X salary, then what are the benefits? Do I have access to, better priced loans? Do I have access to, a savings match in addition to 401k? Like these types of things, I think allow companies to get creative and maybe sign people that they normally wouldn't be able to just based on salary. And so I agree. It's a space that's been vastly underutilized, and I think you'll see a lot more of it in the coming decade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and with that though, I'd like to see the portable benefit. So if you're using
Yes.
FinFET, it just goes right, because we know people aren't staying in jobs anymore. We just talk about all these layoffs or people just deciding to actively move. And so definitely need to be portable. So you get your financial picture and you don't just leave it at that job.
Right. Right. That's a very good point. Very good point. Okay, moving on to this is an article by our own Isabel Castro, who wrote about the new report out from the American Enterprise Institute. And this was, I think, a really interesting one, because you're talking about CBDCs. And so this is Chris Giancarlo, who used to be the head of the CFTC. Now he's with the Digital Dollar Project. And he's a smart guy. And Jim Harper, who I don't know well, he was the co-author of this report, and basically talking about the opportunity to make what they're calling a freedom coin, which is basically talking about bringing US values into a digital currency, making it privacy secure, really contrasting it with what China is doing, which is really a potential tool for the surveillance of its consumers. And let's face it, China aren't shy about doing that. Whereas in the US, they're talking about, I mean, this is all theoretical right now, but they were talking about having everything be anonymized until you see something that is deemed suspicious, and then you try and put in some identifying information. But I love this idea. I think the US should be a leader here, but I love the fact that the American Enterprise Institute put out this report. I think we need more stuff like this, but it just doesn't feel like we're close to anything like this actually happening.
And the amount of distrust in the government right now to like even shepherd something along, whether or not they are the core, piece of that puzzle, which people definitely wouldn't trust. But I mean, we're not even to the point of them trusting like, hey, some framework to help a private version of this go live. So I think we are very far away from this, unfortunately. And while others around the world, China's is obviously the extreme end in terms of surveillance. I think there'll be a lot of others that make progress in the next 5 years, and I just don't know. I don't see the path where the U.S. will, and we're going to be really far behind as others are ramping up.
Mm-hmm. Kat, any thoughts?
I agree with everything. I wish we were the leader. It's wishful thinking, but I can't see it. We have to figure out our own rules and get our own stuff together, and we're so far from this.
Yeah, and the trouble is, you combine the trust in the financial system, trust in government. You combine that with the distrust in both of those. It's not a good combo, and I feel like we're gonna have to play catch up. And then what Europe is further ahead than we are. You got lots of other countries around the world that are.
We missed that opportunity back in like 2016, 2017 to like start to embrace that. Mm-hmm. And who knows, maybe it would have stopped an FTX and others like we've talked about on the show, and that you bring them into the financial system. And yeah, there's always the scammer. Madoff obviously was a scammer, but I think you would have brought a lot more into the system, a lot more understanding into the system. And I think we'd be in a vastly different place than we are today, but we're not.
No, we are not, unfortunately. Okay. moving on, I wanted to go down to Latin America because this our good friends at Kazakh Ventures, where they have raised, they're a VC fund focused on tech, a lot of fintech. They've raised $975 million across 2 funds, one early stage, one late stage. I mean, in this environment, that's just very impressive to me. They started by these are former Mercado Libre players. If you don't know Mercado Libre, it's the sort of the Amazon of Latin America. Started in Argentina. I know Todd, you know these guys well. It's they've backed 120 companies so far, and it looks like, and this bodes well for Latin American fintech, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised when I saw this in the news. It kind of came out of nowhere, and it was the other day. It was like, oh yeah, Kazakh Ventures allocating almost $1 billion, to startups in Latin America. It's an area that is still vibrant in many ways. And while I think probably some of the U.S. or Silicon Valley-based VCs might have kind of pulled back a little bit from LATAM, I still think there's a ton of interest there and a lot of excitement still. Because the market is still underdeveloped, and I think it's still going through a lot of different changes, which make VCs and making bets, pretty attractive.
Yeah, agreed. I've talked to a lot of my friends, some who think that the returns, in fintech, it's never going to replicate what happened, the last decade or so. And so they're looking for these new markets and these opportunities where you can have a huge customer base that hasn't been touched by a gazillion, other apps, and isn't as nearly as competitive market as it is. It's almost oversaturated here, right? Across a lot of different areas. And again, with the multiples down, you're just probably not going to see the same exits that you've seen over the last decade. So people are looking at emerging markets. I think this is awesome. And kudos to the Kazakh team for raising that much in this environment.
Yeah. Do you do anything in LATAM for your?
We don't.
No.
Not right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have a Latin American event. We've had, what's his name? Hernan, right?
Hernan Kazak.
Anyway,
which is it's the first half of Kazakh.
Right. So he's spoken at our event a few times, and we are very, just really impressed by what those guys have done. Okay, so our final story for the week, Hello Alice, and that is the name of a new tool that is, it's a funny name for a small business tool. Basically, it's a new tool for scoring small businesses. You actually go through a pretty exhaustive application, or I don't know what you call it, a questionnaire, to get a score. And the reason we're mentioning this is because JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, and MasterCard are all going to be providing this tool for free to their small business customers. And so it's going to get some pretty serious traction. And, like I run a small business. Small businesses are not homogenous like consumers at all. They're hard to assess credit-wise. And I think also the average small business owner is kind of clueless on how to manage their finances. And so anything that can really help there, I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, there's another company I just talked to earlier in the week for my podcast, Uplink, that does similar. I don't know if they have a questionnaire, but they collect thousands of data points to kind of spit out a score. And while it's technically not a quote unquote credit score, it gives you a sense for the health of the business. And they've seen, I think, loan yeses have increased by like 3 to 5 times, and defaults have dropped like between 3 and 7 times. So, I think that there's going to be a lot more tools like this out there, because I think the small business space is still vastly underserved.
Yep.
Agree. We've seen people try to do the credit score for SMB, and no one really successfully. I think Hello Alice locking up this distribution is very interesting. But where you have seen people do well lately is using all these data points to underwrite, and you see it in a lot of the SMB lenders, right? I can think of a bunch in my portfolio that's what they're doing, right? They're looking at they're integrated into all their systems, and they can easily say, okay, this is the health of your business. And you're watching people give that out as a free tool. So, I mean, Hello Alice has been around for a while, and it's really great to see them land this new product and these new distribution deals. It's super exciting.
Yeah. I feel like with small businesses, it's got a long it has made a lot of progress, but there's still a long way to go, it feels like. And, I think, there's a huge need. Most small businesses don't have the access to capital that they need or that they really deserve, I think. And these sort of products will really help that. Anyway, we are out of time. Thank you, Todd, as always. Thank you, Kat. Great to have you on again.
Yep.
And thank you, of course, to the viewers and listeners. Appreciate your attention today. Before we go, though, quick plug: Fintech Nexus USA, May 10th and 11th. It's coming up very soon, 5 weeks away. And if you haven't got your ticket yet, go to fintechnexus.com and do it right now. With that, I will wish you a good afternoon. Have a great long weekend, everybody. See ya.
Thank you.